"Are you financially alone, Mom?" My son spoke those words and kicked me out of my own home. I packed my bags and walked out in silence, with only my dignity for company. Days later, I walked past the building and saw the red grand opening ribbon on my daughter-in-law's apartment. The red ribbon. That damned ribbon that marked my public humiliation. But what they didn't know, what nobody imagined, was that my name had just appeared in Forbes. And when they found out, when they saw my picture in that magazine next to numbers they had never dreamed of, their conversation exploded in a way I will never forget. That red ribbon wasn't inaugurating their victory. It was inaugurating my rebirth. And this is my story. It all started 6 months earlier. I was Caroline, a 63-year-old woman who had dedicated every second of her existence to one purpose: being the best mother possible. I lived in a modest but memory-filled apartment in Chicago. The ivory-colored walls held decades of photographs, laughter, and tears. My husband had passed away 15 years ago, leaving me alone with Ryan, our only son. He was just 18 when he lost his father. I was 48 and facing an uncertain future. But I never gave up. I worked from home, discreetly, silently, building something nobody saw. My days started before dawn. I'd make coffee in that old coffee pot that refused to die, sit down at my computer, and work until the sunlight streamed through the window. Ryan never asked much about my work. I always told him I did consulting. Something simple, I'd say, something that pays the bills. And he believed me. Or maybe he just never cared enough to dig deeper. On Sundays, I would cook his favorite dish, my homemade meatloaf, made exactly the way my grandmother taught me. The smell would fill the apartment, and Ryan would appear in the kitchen with that smile that reminded me of the boy he used to be. "Mom, nobody cooks like you," he'd say, stealing a bite before it was ready. Those moments were my treasure, my reason for existing. But everything changed when he met Chloe. It was at a business conference. She worked in public relations for a tech company. She was beautiful. I couldn't deny that. Long dark hair, always impeccable, wearing pearl-colored dresses that highlighted her figure. She was 28 years old and had an ambition you could feel from a mile away. The first time he brought her home, I noticed something in her eyes. The way she looked around the apartment, as if she were calculating, measuring, evaluating. "It's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Walker," she said with a perfect smile. "Ryan has told me so much about you." But her eyes said something else. Her eyes said, "This place should be mine." At first, it was small things, comments wrapped in sweetness but laced with venom. "Oh, Mrs. Walker, what a lovely blouse, though you don't see that style much anymore, do you?" Or, when I cooked, "This is delicious, but Ryan is watching his diet now. He needs something lighter." Every sentence was a tiny needle pricking my skin, but I smiled. I nodded, because I didn't want to be that mother-in-law. That bitter woman who ruins her son's happiness. Ryan was in love, or at least I thought he was. They got married 8 months after they met. A small but elegant wedding in a garden filled with lavender-colored flowers. I paid for half of it, even though Chloe insisted it wasn't necessary. "Really, Mrs. Walker, we've got this," she'd say. But I insisted. He was my only son, my only chance to see him happy. When I watched them say their vows, I felt a strange mix of joy and loss, like I was handing over something I would never get back. After the wedding, things accelerated. Chloe started coming over to the apartment more often, always with that polite smile, but with eyes that inspected every corner. One day, while we were having tea in the living room, she said something I should have taken as a warning. "This place has so much potential, Mrs. Walker. If it were renovated, it could be worth triple. It's in a neighborhood that's gentrifying like crazy." I didn't think much of it. I thought it was just casual conversation. But Chloe never said anything casually. Every word was a step in a plan I couldn't see. Ryan began to change, subtly at first. He visited less. He answered my calls in a hurry. He always had an excuse. "I'm busy, Mom. Work is crazy. Chloe needs me to go to an event with her." When he did come over, he'd stand near the door, as if he were in a rush to leave. He didn't steal meatloaf from the kitchen anymore. He didn't stay to chat late into the night. The distance between us grew like an invisible but deep crack. One night, 6 months after the wedding, I got a call. It was Ryan. "Mom, we need to talk. Chloe and I want to invite you to dinner tomorrow. Something important." My heart leaped. I thought maybe they were going to announce a pregnancy. Maybe I was going to be a grandmother. That idea filled me with an excitement I hadn't felt in years. I prepared a small gift, a beige teddy bear I had been saving for that special occasion. I put on my best dress, an emerald green one my husband had given me years ago. I arrived at their apartment with a smile. But the smile froze when I saw their faces. There was no celebration in their eyes. There was something else. Something cold and calculated. "Sit down, Mom," Ryan said, not meeting my eyes. "We need to talk about your situation." My situation. As if I were a problem to be solved. Chloe sat beside him, her hands perfectly folded in her lap. "Your apartment is in your name," Ryan began. "But you live alone, and you're not working as much anymore, right?" I stayed silent. Not working as much. If only he knew. "Chloe and I have been thinking," he continued. "It would be better if you moved to a smaller place, something more manageable, and we could use your apartment. It's in a better location, and we need more space." It felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "You're asking for my home?" I asked, my voice trembling. "We're not asking, Mom. We're telling you that you can't afford it anymore. You're financially alone. It's time to be realistic." Chloe smiled. A small, triumphant smile. "We'll help you find something nice, Mrs. Walker. Something appropriate for this stage of your life. Stage of my life." As if I were dying. That night, there was no dinner. I stood up, took my purse, and left without a word. Behind me, I heard Chloe's voice whispering something to Ryan. I didn't hear what she said, but I heard her laugh, and that laugh haunted me for days. 2 weeks after that dinner, Ryan showed up at my apartment unannounced. He carried a folder under his arm and wore that expression he used to make when he had bad news. Chloe was behind him, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor like hammer blows. "Mom, we need to resolve this today," he said, walking in without even a hello. I was making lunch. I had just bought groceries to make grilled cheese sandwiches, his childhood favorite, but he didn't even glance at the kitchen. He sat on the sofa as if he owned the place. Well, technically he did. I had put everything in his name years ago, when he turned 25. A gesture of trust. A gesture that was now being turned against me. Chloe stood by the window, looking down at the street with her arms crossed. Her champagne-colored dress shimmered in the afternoon light. "We've spoken to a lawyer," Ryan began, opening the folder. "Legally, this apartment is mine. You transferred it to me years ago." I nodded slowly. "I know, Ryan. It was a gift. For your future." "Exactly. My future," he repeated with emphasis. "And my future is with Chloe. We need this space. You don't. You're just one person. We're a family. A family." That word pierced me like a hot iron. "And what am I?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I, who raised you alone. I, who worked day and night to give you an education, clothes, food. Am I not your family?" Ryan sighed impatiently, as if I were a stubborn child. "It's not about that, Mom. It's about being practical. You don't have enough income to maintain this place. We live in a time where you have to be smart with resources." Chloe turned from the window. Her voice was soft but lethal. "Mrs. Walker, we understand this is difficult, but you've already lived your life. You had your time. Now it's our turn. We deserve to live well, and you are occupying a space that we could use better." I stared at her. I finally saw something clearly in her eyes. It wasn't just ambition. It was contempt. She saw me as a piece of old furniture that needed to be thrown out to make room for something new. Ryan put some papers on the table. "I need you to sign this. It's a document agreeing to move out in 30 days. We already found a place for you. It's small, but sufficient. It's way out in the suburbs, near Joliet. Quiet. Perfect for your age. Joliet, over 40 miles away, far from everything I knew, far from my friends, far from my life. And if I don't sign?" I asked. Ryan slammed the folder shut. Then we'll have to do it the legal way. And believe me, Mom, you don't want to go through that. It would be humiliating for everyone. Chloe came over and sat on the arm of the sofa, next to Ryan. She placed her hand on his shoulder in a possessive gesture. Let's do this civilized, Mrs. Walker. Everybody wins. You get a place to live. We get to start our real life. And nobody has to fight. Everybody wins. I lost my home. I lost 30 years of memories. I lost the only place I still felt close to my husband. But they gained an apartment in a prime location that they could sell or rent for thousands of dollars a month. I'm not signing, I said firmly. This is my home. I raised my son here. My life is here. Ryan stood up abruptly. Mom, don't be stubborn. You're financially alone. How are you going to pay the HOA fees? The utilities? What do you even live on? That consulting job you never explain? I had no choice. I took out my phone and showed him the balance of my bank account. The personal one, not the business accounts. It had $150,000, savings from years. Ryan looked at the screen and turned pale. Then he looked at Chloe. She narrowed her eyes. Where did you get that? Ryan asked, his voice full of suspicion. Work, Ryan. Hard work. I've worked my whole life. I just never bragged about it. Chloe moved closer. Her expensive perfume filled the space. $150,000 isn't that much, Mrs. Walker. It sounds like a lot, but it goes fast, especially at your age. Medical expenses, emergencies. You'd be smart to be careful now. My son nodded, like a puppet. She's right, Mom. That money won't last forever. It's better if you use it to live quietly somewhere cheaper, and we can stay here. It's the logical thing to do, the logical thing. As if a mother's love could be measured by logic. As if years of sacrifice were just numbers on a calculator. I got up and walked toward my bedroom. I need to think, I said. You can leave. Ryan hit the table in frustration. We don't have time for you to think. We need an answer today. I stopped in the hallway and turned around. My answer is no. This is my home, and I am not leaving. Chloe let out a dry laugh. Then we'll do this the hard way, she whispered. Over the next few days, the pressure mounted. Ryan would call me 3-4 times a day. Text messages, emails, all with the same theme. I need you to leave. Chloe started showing up in the building, talking to the neighbors, asking about me, planting seeds of doubt. Mrs. Walker is getting too old to live alone, don't you think? What if something happens to her? It would be terrible. My neighbors, women I had known for years, started looking at me with pity, as if I were already dead, as if I were a burden. One afternoon, Linda, my downstairs neighbor, knocked on my door. Caroline, are you okay? She asked with genuine concern. Your daughter-in-law has been saying things. That you're sick, that you can't take care of yourself. I thanked her but told her everything was fine. I didn't want to involve anyone else. This was a problem between my son and me. Or so I thought. Because what I didn't know was that Chloe had already started investigating me, looking into my work, into my finances. And she had found something. Something that would change everything. The day it all exploded was a Friday. Ryan arrived with Chloe and 2 other men. Friends of theirs, he said. Mom, this is over, he announced, his voice hard. You either sign today, or we call the police and have you removed for disturbing the peace. Disturbing the peace? I was in my own home, cooking, living my life. But they had set the stage. Chloe had called the building manager, claiming I was behaving erratically, that I was screaming at night, that I was worrying the neighbors. All lies. But lies, when repeated, become truth. The 2 men started going through my things, opening drawers, looking at papers, searching for something. What are you doing? I shouted. Packing your things, Chloe answered coldly. We already brought boxes. You can take the essentials. We'll donate the rest. Donate. As if my belongings were trash. I tried to stop them, but Ryan grabbed my arm. Mom, please, don't make this harder. You're financially alone. You can't be here anymore. My wife doesn't want you here. Those last words hung in the air like toxic smoke. My wife doesn't want you here. He didn't say, we need the space. He didn't say, "It's a difficult decision." He said, "My wife doesn't want you." And he chose to obey her. I pulled my arm from his grip. "Fine," I whispered. "I'll go, but not because you're forcing me. I'm going because I no longer recognize the man standing in front of me. My son is dead." "You are a stranger." Ryan didn't answer. He didn't even blink. I packed 2 suitcases. Clothes, important documents, photographs, the essentials. I left everything else. The furniture I chose with my husband, the paintings we bought on trips, 30 years of memories. As I zipped the last suitcase, Chloe walked into my bedroom. "You made the right decision, Mrs. Walker," she said with that venomous smile. "Sometimes you just have to know when to retire." I walked out of the apartment with my head held high. No tears. No screams. Just dignity. But as I rode down in the elevator, I heard their voices celebrating upstairs. And I knew this wasn't over. It was just beginning. I checked into a modest hotel near downtown. A small room with cream-colored walls and a bed that creaked every time I moved. From the window, I could watch the city move, indifferent to my pain. People hurried by, laughing, living. And I was there, suspended in a limbo between rage and sadness. The first few nights, I didn't sleep. I just lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every decision. Where did I go wrong? Was I too generous? Too quiet about my success? My husband always used to tell me, "Caroline, you're too humble. Someday that silence is going to cost you." He was right. That silence cost me my own son. During the day, I worked from my laptop. Calls with investors, reviewing contracts, market analysis. My consulting company was actually a group of 4 companies operating in technology, real estate, and international trade. I had spent years building it, brick by brick, without making a sound. No publicity, no bragging. Because for me, money was never the goal. It was just a tool to give Ryan security, so he would never go through what I did as a child. Poverty, uncertainty, fear. But now that money, that silent success, was being turned against me, because my son thought I was a burden, an old woman with no resources, and his wife was manipulating him with that lie. A week after leaving my apartment, I decided to walk by the building. I don't know why. Maybe masochism. Maybe a need for closure. It was a gray afternoon, with low clouds threatening rain. I walked slowly down the sidewalk, my hands stuffed in the pockets of my gray coat. And then I saw it. The red ribbon. A damned red grand opening ribbon was stretched across the door of my apartment. They had put silver balloons on either side. An elegant sign read, "Welcome to our new home." I froze. They hadn't even waited 2 weeks. They had already made it theirs. They had erased my existence as if I'd never been there. Neighbors walked by and looked on with curiosity. Some stopped to congratulate them. "It looks beautiful," one woman said. "You can tell you have good taste." Good taste. They bought new furniture with the money they surely got from selling mine. I moved closer, slowly. The door was ajar. Music was playing inside. Laughter. A party. They were celebrating their victory, celebrating having kicked me out. Something inside me broke. But it wasn't sadness. It was clarity. A cold, sharp clarity, like broken glass. Because in that moment, I understood this wasn't just about an apartment. It was about control. Chloe had investigated. She had discovered something about my company. And now she was playing a game I didn't fully understand yet. I stood there, hidden behind a street lamp, watching. People came and went. Friends of theirs. Co-workers. All admiring the place. No one asking about me. As if I had never existed. Then I heard voices coming from inside. Voices moving toward the door. It was Ryan and Chloe. I walked quickly toward the corner, but I managed to hear part of their conversation. "Are you sure your contact verified everything?" Ryan asked, his tone nervous. Chloe answered calmly. "Completely sure. Your mother has more than she lets on. A lot more. But as long as she thinks we don't know, we can keep pressuring her." The apartment was just the first step. My blood ran cold. They knew. Or at least they suspected. Chloe had hired someone to investigate me, and that someone had found traces, bank accounts, properties, financial movements. Not everything, because I was careful, but enough to awaken their greed. I walked back to the hotel, my legs shaking. I needed to think. I needed to act. Because this was no longer just a family conflict. It was a strategy, a plan to strip me of everything. And I had been foolish enough not to see it coming. That night I called Arthur. He had been my husband's lawyer, and then mine. A serious, meticulous man of 68, with a deep voice that commanded respect. "Caroline, I'm glad to hear from you," he said when he answered. "But from your tone, I know something is wrong." I told him everything. The eviction, the red ribbon, the conversation I overheard. Arthur was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Caroline, this is more serious than you thought. If she hired investigators, she's likely found some of your companies. Not all of them, because you use different corporate names, but some." "What should I do?" I asked, feeling panic climb up my throat. "First, we need to protect your assets. I'm going to review all the documents. Second, I need you to authorize me to run a check. See how much she really knows. And third, Caroline, you need to prepare yourself. Because if she discovers the real magnitude of your wealth, this is going to get ugly." I spent the next few days in a fog of anxiety and strategy. Arthur worked silently, reviewing every contract, every deed, every financial move. Meanwhile, I continued to run my businesses as if nothing was wrong. Virtual meetings, investment decisions, project approvals. My professional life was an empire no one saw. My personal life was a disaster everyone judged. One afternoon, while drinking coffee at the small hotel table, I received a message from Ryan. "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." I didn't respond right away. I let him wait, let him feel, if only for a second, the uncertainty he had caused me. Finally, I wrote, "What do you need?" His reply was fast. "Chloe and I want to meet with you. There's something we need to discuss. Something important." I knew immediately what it was about. They had found more information, and now they were coming for more. I agreed to meet them at a coffee shop near the Magnificent Mile, a public, neutral place. I arrived 15 minutes early and chose a table by the window. I ordered a chamomile tea that I barely touched. When they arrived, Chloe was wearing a salmon-colored dress and black heels. Ryan was wearing a suit. As if this were a business meeting. And I suppose for them, it was. They sat across from me without a greeting. Chloe placed her purse on the table with that calculated gesture I now knew so well. "Mrs. Walker, I'll be direct," she began. "We did some research on you." Her smile was shark-like. "And we discovered some very interesting things. It turns out you're not the poor little old lady you pretended to be. You have properties, investments, offshore accounts." Ryan looked at me with a mix of confusion and betrayal. "Why did you never tell us?" he asked accusingly. "Why did you make us believe you were barely surviving?" I took a sip of my tea. I let it sit in my mouth before swallowing. "Why did you never ask?" "Ryan, you never cared. You just assumed." Chloe leaned forward. Her sweet perfume invaded the space. "We found records of at least 3 properties in your name, and bank movements totaling over $500,000 in the last year. What does a woman your age do with that much money?" She was lying. Or she had incomplete information, because $500,000 was just a fraction, but I wasn't going to correct her. Not yet. "I work," I answered calmly. "I've always worked, and I've been smart with my money." "Is that a crime?" Ryan tapped the table softly. "You lied to us. You made us feel guilty for asking for the apartment when you have more than enough." "I didn't lie to you. You assumed. There's a difference." Chloe pulled some papers from her purse. She put them on the table. "We want a deal," she said coldly. "You keep your businesses. We keep the apartment, and you give us financial compensation. $100,000. For the years Ryan took care of you, the years Ryan took care of me. As if changing a baby's diapers, giving him an education, love, and a future were transactions that had to be reimbursed." I laughed. A dry, humorless laugh. "You're crazy if you think I'm going to give you a single cent. The apartment is already yours. You took it, but you're not getting anything else from me. Chloe stood up. Her voice rose in volume. You owe us. You lied to us. You made us feel guilty. And now you're going to compensate us. Or we're going to sue you for emotional fraud. People in the coffee shop started to look at us. Ryan tried to calm her down, but she pushed him away. Mrs. Walker, this isn't over. We are going to expose everything you have. We're going to tell everyone what kind of person you are. A liar. A manipulator. I stood up slowly. I picked up my purse, and before I left, I said something that left them frozen. Go ahead. Expose whatever you want. Because what you don't know is that you've only seen the surface. And when you discover the whole truth, you are going to regret ever starting this war. I walked out of the coffee shop, leaving them with their mouths open. And as I walked down the street, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Power. That night, I couldn't sleep. Chloe's words echoed in my head like alarm bells. We are going to expose everything you have. It wasn't an empty threat, it was a promise. And I knew that if they hired professional investigators, they would find more than I wanted to reveal, much more. I sat on the hotel bed with my laptop open. I reviewed every one of my companies, every account, every investment. I had been so careful for years, so meticulous. I used different corporate names, complex legal structures, trusts, all designed to protect my privacy and my assets. But I also knew that nothing was completely impenetrable. If Chloe had enough money and enough determination, she would eventually find the whole truth, and that truth would change everything. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I made a decision. If they were going to find out anyway, I would control how and when they found out. I called Arthur first thing in the morning. Caroline, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, he answered, his voice sleepy. I need you to do something for me, I said, getting straight to the point. I need you to request the publication of my consolidated financial statements. I want my real net worth on public record. There was a long silence. Caroline, are you sure? Once that information is public, there's no going back. Ryan will know. Chloe will know. The whole world will know. I know, I replied, my voice firm. That's why I want to do it. But first, I need to understand what they've already discovered. I want to know exactly what information they have. Arthur sighed. Give me 24 hours. I have contacts who can find out. But Caroline, prepare yourself, because this could explode in ways you can't imagine. I spent that day like a ghost. I walked through Lincoln Park without really seeing anything. I sat on a bench and watched the families. Parents with children. Grandmothers with grandchildren. Laughter. Hugs. Everything I had lost. A little girl ran toward me, chasing an orange ball. I bent down and tossed it back to her. She smiled and yelled, "Thank you," before running back to her mother. That smile broke my heart, because it reminded me of Ryan when he was that age, when he looked at me like I was his hero, when my love was enough. Have you ever given everything for someone, only to have them snatch it away? I asked myself silently, looking at the sky. Have you ever loved so much that you forgot to protect yourself? Because that's what I did. I loved unconditionally, without strategy, without safeguards, and now I was paying the price. Arthur called me at 8 o'clock that night. Caroline, I need you to come to my office. Now, there are things you need to see. I took a cab and got there in 20 minutes. His office was in a corporate building near the Loop. Arthur was waiting for me with several documents spread across his mahogany desk. His face was serious. More serious than usual. Sit down, he said, motioning to a chair. This is worse than we thought. I sat, feeling my stomach tighten. Chloe hired a private investigation agency. Not just any agency, one of the best. And she paid very well. They found 4 of your companies. They know you have properties in Scottsdale, Miami, and Austin. They know you have investments in the tech sector. And they have bank documents showing movements of almost $2 million in the last 3 years. $2 million. It was barely a fifth of my real net worth, but enough to completely change the narrative. Arthur put a paper in front of me. This is the report they gave her 2 days ago. Read it. I took the document with trembling hands. It was exhaustive, detailed, professional. There were screenshots of public records, photographs of the properties, even bank statements I didn't understand how they'd gotten. At the end of the report was a handwritten note. It said, estimated net worth between $8 and $10 million. Recommendation: proceed with lawsuit for concealment of assets and emotional manipulation. High probability of a favorable out-of-court settlement. My vision blurred. 10 million. They were close. Very close. My real net worth was $18 million. But they had gotten halfway there, and if they kept digging, they'd find the rest. What does emotional manipulation mean? I asked, my voice trembling. Arthur took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. They're going to argue that you hid your wealth so Ryan would feel guilt and an obligation to take care of you. That you emotionally manipulated him by pretending to be needy when you were actually a millionaire. And technically, Caroline, even though you and I know that's not how it was, in a courtroom, they could make it look convincing. I sat in silence, processing the information. So my generosity, my humility, my decision not to brag about my success was now a weapon being used against me. What can I do? I finally asked. Arthur stood up and walked to the window. You have two options. First, you settle with them. Give them an amount that satisfies them and end this. Second, you fight back. You make your true financial position public before they do. You take control of the narrative. But that second option comes with a very high emotional cost. What kind of cost? Arthur turned to face me. Ryan is going to find out that his mother is one of the most successful businesswomen in the country. That all this time she could have given him much more but chose not to. He's going to feel betrayed, deceived. And Chloe will use that against him. She'll paint you as a manipulator, a liar. They will destroy your public image. I don't care about my public image, I said firmly. I care about the truth. And the truth is, I worked in silence to give him a secure future. So he would never depend on me, but would always have a safety net. The problem is, he never knew that net existed. Arthur nodded slowly. Then you need to make a decision tonight, because they are already preparing the lawsuit. They're going to file it next week, and once that happens, it all becomes public anyway. But without your control. I left that office with a painful clarity. There was no escape. The war had already begun, and I had to choose how to fight it. Back in the hotel, I pulled out a box I had stored in the closet. Inside were letters. Letters my husband had written to me before he died. I read all of them that night. One, in particular, made me cry. It said, Caroline, you are the strongest woman I know. But your greatest weakness is that you hide that strength. Someday, you will have to let the world see who you really are. And when that day comes, don't be afraid, because your light is so bright that some people will have to look away. But the ones who truly love you, the ones who really matter, they will see you and understand. I cried until I had no tears left. Then I picked up my phone and texted Arthur. Do it. Publish everything. I want the whole truth to be known. The next day, Arthur started the process. He contacted Forbes. He offered them an exclusive interview with me. He showed them verifiable documents of my net worth, audited financial statements, property records, investment portfolios, everything. The editors nearly fell out of their chairs. Caroline, this is a bombshell, the assigned journalist said when we met. A 63-year-old widow who built an $18 million business empire in complete anonymity. This is the story of the year. I don't want to be famous, I told her firmly. I just want the truth to be known, that my success wasn't luck. It was work, sacrifice, intelligence, and that I chose to keep it private, not out of shame, but out of humility. She nodded and started taking notes. The interview lasted 3 hours. I told her everything. How I started with a small consulting firm from my home. How I reinvested every dollar I earned. How I educated myself in finance, technology, and real estate. How I built a team of professionals who ran my companies while I stayed in the shadows. Why the shadows? The journalist asked. Because money changes people, I replied. And I didn't want my son to see me as a bank. I wanted him to see me as his mother. I wanted our bond to be genuine, not transactional. But in the end, that silence turned against me. Because when I needed him most, he didn't know who I really was. The journalist closed her notebook. "This story is going to change a lot of things, Mrs. Walker. Are you prepared for that?" "No," I answered honestly. "But I can't hide anymore." The article was scheduled to come out in 2 weeks. 2 weeks in which my life hung by a thread. 2 weeks in which Ryan and Chloe still believed they had the upper hand. But I knew something they didn't. The truth always comes to light. And when it did, nothing would ever be the same. Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Every morning I woke up in that hotel room wondering if I had made the right decision. The Forbes article was scheduled for a Thursday that would change everything. But while I waited, life went on. And I was still just Caroline, the invisible woman nobody really saw. Do you know what it feels like to be invisible? I don't mean just being overlooked on the street. I mean when the people you love most look at you, but don't see you. They talk to you, but don't hear you. They assume they know you when they really have no idea who you are. That's what I lived for years. And the question that tormented me was it my fault for not showing myself? Or was it their fault for never asking? I spent my afternoons in that park where I'd returned the ball to the little girl. I sat on the same bench for days, watching, thinking, remembering. One afternoon, an older woman sat down next to me. She had completely silver hair and wrinkles that told stories. She wore a mustard yellow knit sweater and comfortable shoes. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" she said with a kind smile. I nodded, not really in the mood to talk. But she continued, "I've come here every day since my husband died. 3 years ago. At first, I came because I didn't know what else to do. Now I come because it reminds me that life goes on, even when it hurts." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. "Does it still hurt?" She nodded. "Every day, but it's a different kind of pain now. It doesn't paralyze me anymore. It just accompanies me, like a shadow." We sat in silence for a while. Then she asked, "What's hurting you?" I don't know why I told her. Maybe because she was a stranger. Maybe because I needed to say it out loud. I told her about Ryan, about Chloe, about the apartment with the red ribbon, about my decision to keep my success a secret and how it had backfired. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sighed deeply. "Children are complicated," she said finally. "We give them everything and expect them to understand the sacrifice. But they only see the result. They don't see the sleepless nights, the hard decisions, the fears we hid to protect them. They see a roof, food, clothes. They don't see the price we paid to give it to them." Her words hit me like waves, because that was it, exactly. Ryan saw the result, but never the process. He saw there was always money for his education, but he never asked how I got it. He saw that we lived comfortably, but he assumed it was the bare minimum. Normal. He never imagined the effort behind every dollar. Have you ever had to let go of someone you loved to save yourself? I asked this woman whose name I never learned. She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. "Every day for 20 years, she replied. My daughter was an addict. To drugs, to alcohol, to men who destroyed her. I rescued her time and time again. I gave her money, a home, opportunities. Until one day, I understood that rescuing her was killing me. I had to let her go. Let her fall. It was the hardest thing I've ever done." "And what happened?" I asked, holding my breath. She hit rock bottom, and from there, she finally decided to climb back up. Today, she's 5 years sober. But we had to lose 10 years of our relationship for her to understand that I wasn't her enemy. I was her mother. And sometimes, mothers have to do things that seem cruel to save our children from themselves. I processed her words long after she left. Was that what I was doing, letting Ryan fall so he could learn? Or was I just protecting myself from more pain? That night, in the hotel, I stood in front of the mirror. I really saw myself. The wrinkles around my eyes, the gray hairs I no longer bothered to dye, the hands that had worked for decades building something no one applauded. And I asked myself, who are you, Caroline? The sacrificial mother? The successful businesswoman? The betrayed woman? Or all of them at once? The truth was, I had lived a divided life. One part of me was the devoted mother who cooked meatloaf and saved every drawing Ryan made as a child. The other part was the ruthless CEO who closed multi-million-dollar deals and made decisions affecting hundreds of employees. But I never allowed those two parts to meet. I kept walls between them, and those walls ended up isolating me from everyone, including myself. I took out my journal. I hadn't written in months, but that night I needed to get out everything I was holding inside. I wrote, "Dear Ryan, you will probably never read this, but I need to say it anyway. I failed you. Not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you too quietly. I believed love was shown with actions, not words. With sacrifice, not celebration. I gave you security, but I never showed you how I built it. I gave you opportunities, but I never taught you the value of the effort behind them. I thought keeping you shielded from my struggles would protect you, but it only made you a stranger to me. And now here we are. You, thinking your mother is a liar. Me, knowing my son is a stranger. I don't know if we can ever repair this. I don't even know if I want to, because repairing means being vulnerable again, and I'm not sure I can survive another betrayal from you." I closed the journal and cried. I cried for the mother I was, for the mother I couldn't be, for the son I lost, for the relationship I would never get back. And as I cried, something inside me broke. But it wasn't a destructive break. It was a release, like when you tear down an old wall to build something new. I realized I had spent my whole life waiting for someone to see me. My husband saw me, but he died. Ryan could have seen me, but he chose not to. And Chloe saw me, but she only saw what she could take. So the question became clear. Why did I need others to see me to validate my existence? Why did my worth depend on their recognition? The answer was simple and devastating. Because I never learned to see myself. I spent the next few days working on changing that. Every morning I stood in front of the mirror and said out loud, "You are Caroline. You are 63 years old. You built an $18 million empire from scratch. You raised a son alone. You survived widowhood. You survived betrayal. And you will keep surviving. Because you are stronger than anyone imagines, including yourself." At first, the words sounded false, mechanical, but with each repetition, they became more real, more true, and something began to change. My posture, my gaze, the way I walked down the street. I no longer walked with slumped shoulders and my head down. I walked tall, with purpose, like the CEO I was, like the woman I should have always allowed myself to be. A week before the article was published, I got a call from Ryan. "Mom, we need to talk. Chloe found more information about you. This is getting serious." His voice had that tone he used to use as a teenager when he'd done something wrong but was trying to blame someone else. "What did she find?" I asked calmly. "Companies. Mom, you have companies. Several of them. And properties all over the country. Why did you lie to us?" "I didn't lie, Ryan. I simply didn't share every detail of my professional life. Just like you don't tell me about every meeting you have or every project you work on. But I don't have millions of dollars hidden away." He yelled. "You do, and that changes everything." "Changes what?" I asked, feeling the anger rise. "Does it change that you kicked me out of my home? Does it change that you humiliated me? Does it change that you chose your wife over your mother? Because from where I'm standing, Ryan, the only thing that changes is that now you know I'm not the poor old woman you thought I was, and that bothers you. Not because you underestimated me, but because now you can't justify how you treated me." The silence on the other end of the line was long. Finally, he spoke. "Chloe says we're going to sue you for emotional manipulation and concealment of assets. She says we have a strong case." "Go ahead," I replied, with a calm that surprised me. "Sue me. Expose whatever you want. Because in 1 week, the entire world is going to know who I am. And when that happens, Ryan, you're going to have to explain why you kicked out a successful, hard-working woman just because your greedy wife convinced you to." I hung up before he could answer. And for the first time in months, I smiled. A real smile. Because I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't hiding. The storm was coming. But I was ready. I'm asking you, who are listening to me, have you ever had to choose between protecting your peace and maintaining a relationship that was destroying you? Tell me in the comments, because I need to know I'm not alone in this. That other people have had to make impossible decisions and survived to tell the tale. Thursday arrived like a silent thunderclap. I woke up early. Before the sun came up, I hadn't really slept. I had just closed my eyes and waited. I knew that in a matter of hours, my life would change forever. The digital edition of Forbes was set to publish at 7 o'clock in the morning. The print magazine would hit newsstands at noon. Arthur had sent me a message the night before. Caroline, last chance to back out. Once this is out, there's no turning back. I had replied with one word: proceed. Now, sitting on that hotel bed I knew every inch of, I waited. The clock read 6:45. 15 minutes. 15 minutes until the world discovered that the humiliated old woman was actually one of the most successful businesswomen in the country. At 7 o'clock sharp, my phone began to vibrate. First, it was a text from Arthur with the link. Then another from Linda, my neighbor. Then 3 missed calls from unknown numbers. I opened the link with trembling hands. And there it was. My photograph on the digital cover of Forbes. A photo they had taken last week at the magazine's offices. I was wearing a pearl gray pantsuit, my hair pulled back elegantly, and a look in my eyes I didn't recognize in myself. It was strong, confident, powerful. The headline read, Caroline Walker, the Invisible CEO, How She Built an $18 million Empire in Complete Anonymity. Below it, in smaller letters, From Widowhood to Forbes. The story of a woman who chose silence over fame and how that decision almost cost her everything. I started to read the article. The journalist had done a masterful job. She told my story from the beginning. How I was widowed at 48 with a teenage son. How I started a small consulting firm from my home while Ryan was in high school. How I invested every dollar I earned in real estate when the market was down. How I expanded into tech when I saw the sector's potential. How I built a network of 4 companies operating under different corporate names, generating annual revenues of over $3 million. But the most shocking part of the article was the end, the part where she told the story of the betrayal, about how my son and daughter-in-law had kicked me out of my own apartment, believing I was a financial burden, about the red grand opening ribbon, about the lawsuit they were planning to file for emotional manipulation. The journalist wrote, in a cruel twist of irony, the woman who built her fortune to protect her son ended up being attacked by him precisely because she kept that fortune a secret. The question that arises is, when does a mother's love become her greatest vulnerability? My phone wouldn't stop ringing. I ignored the first 20 calls. But then I saw a name that made me stop. Ryan. I answered without saying anything. On the other end, I heard heavy breathing. Then his voice breaking. Mom, what did you do? What did I do? I repeated calmly. I published the truth, Ryan. That's what I did. But this is everywhere. My coworkers have already seen it. Chloe's friends. Everyone is talking about this. My boss called me to ask if it's true, if I really kicked my millionaire mother out of her house. The humiliation in his voice gave me no pleasure, but it didn't make me feel pity either. Now you know how it feels, I said. When everyone is looking at you and judging. When your private life becomes a public spectacle. I lived that when you threw me out and put up that red ribbon as if it were a victory. Now it's your turn. Mom, please. Chloe is beside herself. She's saying this is war, that we're going to destroy your reputation, that we're going to... I don't care anymore, Ryan. I interrupted him. Do whatever you have to do, because I've already done my part. I showed the world who I am. And if you and your wife want to keep fighting, go ahead. But know that every move you make now will be public. Every word, every action. Because the spotlight is on you now, and the world is watching. I hung up and turned off my phone. I needed silence. I needed to process what had just happened. I stood in front of the hotel window and watched the city wake up. Cars filling the streets. People running for the L train. Vendors opening their stalls. Life went on, as always, indifferent to my personal storm. But for me, nothing would ever be the same. I had crossed a bridge and burned it behind me. There was no going back. At 11 o'clock in the morning, Arthur arrived at the hotel. He was carrying a stack of newspapers and his tablet, full of screenshots. "Caroline, this exploded more than we ever imagined," he said, putting everything on the table. "You're trending on social media. There are hundreds of articles. News stations are requesting interviews. And most importantly, there's a huge movement of older women who are identifying with you. They're sharing their own stories of family betrayal, of ungrateful children, of manipulative daughters-in-law. You've become a symbol." I picked up one of the newspapers. My Forbes photo was on the front page with a headline, "The millionaire mom her son didn't value." I opened the paper and read the comments from readers. One woman wrote, "My son also abandoned me when he thought I had nothing left to give. This story gives me hope that one day he'll understand what he lost." Another comment said, "We mothers give everything and get crumbs in return." Thank you, Caroline, for showing that our worth doesn't depend on our children's recognition. Arthur put his tablet in front of me. "But there's something else you need to see. It's a video. Chloe posted it 2 hours ago." I felt a knot in my stomach. I pressed play. Chloe appeared on screen, perfectly made up, wearing a cream-colored dress, her hair impeccable. Behind her, I could see the living room of my old apartment. "Hi, everyone," she began, her voice soft and controlled. "I know many of you have seen the article about my mother-in-law, Caroline, and I want to clear some things up because the press isn't telling the whole story." She paused dramatically. "Caroline lied to us for years. She made us believe she was barely surviving financially. My husband, her own son, lived with constant guilt, thinking his mother was suffering. We gave her money, we took her out to eat. We paid her medical bills, all while she had millions hidden away. Do you know what that does to a person? To live a lie? To feel like you're taking care of someone who is actually manipulating you." My blood was boiling, but I kept watching. She continued, "And now she plays the victim, says we betrayed her. But the reality is, she betrayed us first. She lied to us. She used us. And when we asked her to be honest, when we asked for the apartment that legally belongs to my husband, she refused. She played the martyr. And now she's using the media to destroy us. But we won't be silent. We are going to show the truth." The video ended with Chloe wiping away a perfectly calculated tear. It already had over 50,000 views, and the comments were divided. Some supported her. "She's right. Manipulative mothers exist. It's not always the kid's fault." Others attacked her. "You're a gold digger. I can see the greed in your eyes. All you wanted was your mother-in-law's money." Arthur turned off the tablet. "Caroline, this is going to get worse before it gets better. Chloe is building her own narrative. And she has allies. People who believe parents should be completely transparent with their children about money. That hiding wealth is a form of manipulation. You need to decide if you're going to respond, or if you're going to let this die down on its own." I thought about it for a moment. Then I said, "I'm not going to respond. I'm not getting into a media war with her. The truth is already out there. The facts are documented. People can decide for themselves who is lying and who is not. But Arthur was right. Things got worse. Over the next 3 days, Chloe gave interviews to 4 different television shows. On each one, she told her version. On each one, she painted herself as the victim of a manipulative mother-in-law. She even brought on a psychologist who talked about covert emotional abuse and how parents can use money as a tool of control. Ryan appeared in one of the interviews. He looked devastated, tired, with deep, dark circles under his eyes. "My mother," he began, his voice cracking, "is a complex woman. I love her. I always will. But I can't deny that I feel betrayed. To live believing she depended on me, that I was her support system, and then to find out she had more money than I will ever have. It's hard to process." The interviewer asked, "Do you think she manipulated you?" Ryan hesitated. Then he nodded slowly. "I think she withheld important information from me, and that affected our decisions. If I had known the truth, maybe things would have been different." Seeing my son on television saying those words was like being stabbed, because part of me understood his pain, understood his confusion, but another part, the part that had worked tirelessly to give him a future, the part that cried in silence for years so he wouldn't have to carry my fears. That part was furious, because he reduced my sacrifice to manipulation, my protection to deceit, my love to strategy. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to publish, just for me, to get out everything I was holding inside. I wrote, "Ryan, if you ever read this, I want you to know that every decision I made out of love, not control. When your father died, the world became a terrifying place. I had to be strong for both of us. I had to build a future where you would be safe, even if I was gone. And I did it. I built companies, investments, a legacy. But I never told you because I didn't want you to see me as a bank. I wanted you to see me as your mother. I wanted our bond to be about love, not money. I was wrong to think I could protect you from the world by shielding you from my struggles. But I was not wrong to love you unconditionally. And if you can't see that, if you choose to believe I was manipulative instead of protective, then there is nothing more I can do. Because I can no longer keep justifying my existence to you." I folded the letter and put it away with my husband's. Testimonies of a love that no longer existed, of relationships that were broken beyond repair. And as I put that letter away, something inside me finally surrendered. I didn't surrender to them. I surrendered the hope that they would one day understand. I surrendered the fantasy of a reconciliation. I surrendered the pain of waiting for them to see me. And in that surrender, I found something unexpected. Peace. A strange, painful peace, but peace nonetheless. Because when you stop waiting for others to validate you, when you let go of the need for their approval, their understanding, their love, you become free. And I needed that freedom. I needed it more than air. A week after the Forbes article, I received a call from an unknown number. I normally didn't answer, but something told me I should this time. "Mrs. Caroline Walker?" asked a formal male voice. "I'm Julian Vance, an attorney specializing in family and estate law. I've been following your case with great interest, and I believe you need immediate legal representation." "I already have a lawyer," I answered cautiously. "I know Mr. Arthur is excellent, but what you need right now isn't just a corporate lawyer. You need someone who understands the dirty game being played against you. And believe me, Mrs. Walker, this is just beginning." His words sent a chill down my spine. "What do you mean?" Julian sighed. "I have information about your daughter-in-law that changes the narrative completely. Information she definitely does not want to get out. May I come see you?" 2 hours later, Julian was sitting across from me in the hotel's small cafe. He was a man in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that analyzed everything. He placed a thick folder on the table. "Mrs. Walker, I did my own research on Chloe. And what I found is disturbing." He opened the folder and began showing me documents. "Chloe isn't who she says she is. Her real name is Chloe Patricia Soto. She's 32, not 28 like she told your son. And she has a history." My heart began to beat faster. "What kind of history?" Julian placed 3 photographs in front of me. "Chloe has been married before. Twice. Both marriages were to older men. Both ended with very favorable financial settlements for her after less than 2 years. In the first case, she managed to keep an apartment valued at $300,000. In the second, she got a $150,000 compensation for emotional distress. I felt sick. "My son is her third," Julian continued, relentless. "But there's more. Chloe has debts. Lots of debts. Credit cards, personal loans, even a car that's about to be repossessed. They total over $80,000. And the reason she investigated your finances so aggressively wasn't just greed. It was desperation. She needed money, urgently. And you, with your profile as a discreet widow living in a nice apartment, seemed like the perfect target. "Does Ryan know this?" I asked, my voice trembling. Julian shook his head. "I have no evidence that he does. In fact, I have reason to believe she lied to him about many things, including her age, her past, and her true intentions." I took the documents with shaky hands. "Why are you helping me? What do you get out of this?" Julian closed the folder. "Honestly, Mrs. Walker, your story reminded me of my own mother. She was also manipulated by my brother and his wife. They isolated her, made her feel useless, and took everything from her. When she died, I hadn't been able to do anything to protect her. I was in law school in another state. I was too late. So now, when I see cases like yours, I intervene, because I want at least one mother to get justice. His words moved me deeply. I wasn't alone. There was someone who understood, someone who wanted to help, with no hidden agenda. "What do you suggest I do?" I asked. Julian leaned forward. "First, we need to show this information to Ryan. He deserves to know who he's married to. Second, we need to prepare for the lawsuit Chloe is going to file, because she will. And it will be brutal. She'll accuse you of psychological abuse, financial manipulation, everything she can invent. But if we present this information first, if we show that she is the one with a pattern of manipulative behavior, we change the whole game." "And if Ryan doesn't believe me?" I asked, afraid. "If he thinks I'm making this up to attack her? Then at least you will know you tried to save him," Julian replied firmly. "And when it all collapses, when he finally sees the truth, you will have done your part. The rest is up to him." That night, I couldn't sleep. I held the truth about Chloe in my hands. A truth that would destroy the image Ryan had of his wife, but also a truth that could save him from a disastrous future. The question was, did I have the right to reveal it? Or would that be manipulation too? I debated for hours. Finally, I made a decision. I sent a message to Ryan. It just said, "I need to see you. It's urgent. It's not about me. It's about your future. Please." His reply came 3 hours later. "Tomorrow, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The coffee shop on Michigan Avenue. I'll come alone." I showed the message to Julian. He nodded. "Perfect. I'll be nearby if you need me. But this conversation has to be between a mother and her son. No lawyers, no witnesses, just the truth." I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. I chose a table in the corner, away from the windows. I needed privacy for what I was about to do. The folder with the information on Chloe felt like lead in my bag. Every minute that passed felt like an hour. At 2 o'clock exactly, Ryan walked in. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. His face was gaunt, and his eyes were red as if he hadn't slept in days. He sat across from me without a greeting. "This has to be quick, Mom. Chloe is waiting for me. She doesn't know I'm here." "That's good," I replied calmly, "because what I have to show you is about her." Ryan frowned. "Mom, if this is another attempt to break up my marriage, I'm not going to listen. You had your moment with Forbes. You said what you wanted to say. Ryan, please, just look me in the eye and tell me something. Are you happy?" He blinked, surprised by the question. "What? Are you happy with Chloe? Really happy? Or are you just defending her because admitting you were wrong would be too painful?" The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan looked out the window, avoiding my gaze. Finally, he spoke in a low voice. "I'm tired, Mom. Tired of fighting. Tired of everyone having an opinion about my life. Tired of feeling like no matter what I do, I'm always wrong." I took the folder and put it on the table. "Then before you get any more tired, you need to see this. Because this isn't about opinions. It's about facts." Ryan eyed the folder with suspicion but didn't touch it. "What is it?" "The truth about Chloe. About who she really is. About the past she hid from you." I opened the folder and put the first photographs in front of him. They were photos of Chloe's previous marriages, marriage certificates, divorce certificates, financial settlement agreements. Ryan took the papers with trembling hands. His face turned pale as he read. This can't be real. Chloe told me I was her first husband. That she'd never been married before. She lied to you, Ryan. And not just about that. I put down more documents. The debts, the loans, the maxed out credit cards, the car about to be repossessed. Ryan read page after page, his eyes growing wider. "She told me she had savings," he whispered. "She said she'd worked hard and had money put away. That's why she seemed so financially secure. But this says she owes $80,000. "More by now, probably," I replied. "Julian, the lawyer who investigated this, says she saw you as a solution to her financial problems. That's why she was so insistent on getting my apartment. That's why she investigated my finances." It wasn't just greed, Ryan. It was desperation. Ryan dropped the papers on the table and covered his face with his hands. I can't believe this. I can't. How could I have been so stupid? You weren't stupid, I said softly. You were manipulated by someone who is very good at what she does. This isn't your fault, but it is my fault, he suddenly yelled, drawing glances from other tables. It's my fault because I chose to believe her over you. I chose to kick you out of your own home. I chose to humiliate you. And this whole time, she was playing me like a puppet. I reached my hand across the table but didn't touch him. There was still too much distance between us. Ryan, I know you hated me these past few weeks. I know you thought I was a liar, a manipulator. But I need you to understand something. I never hid my success to control you. I did it to protect you. So our relationship would be genuine. So you would love me for being your mother, not for what I could give you. I made a mistake by not being more open, but my intentions were always love. Hers, Ryan, never were. He began to cry, a deep, ragged cry, from someone who just woke up from a nightmare only to find reality is worse. Forgive me. Mom, please, forgive me. I didn't know, I didn't see. I was so blind. I wanted to hug him. Every cell in my body screamed to comfort him. But something stopped me, because forgiving too quickly would invalidate my own pain. I need time, Ryan, I said, my voice firm but not cruel. I need time to process everything that happened, to heal. Because yes, you were manipulated, but you also made a choice. You chose her words over mine. You chose to kick me out. You chose to put up that red ribbon, as if my existence was something to celebrate getting rid of. I can't forgive that yet. Maybe someday, but not today. Ryan nodded through his tears. I understand. I deserve that. But, please, just tell me what to do now. How do I get out of this? First, you talk to Chloe. Show her these documents. Ask her directly about her past. And when she tries to justify it, when she tries to twist the story to make herself the victim, remember this moment. Remember that the truth always has a solid foundation. Lies need constant reinforcement. Ryan stood up to leave but stopped. One last question. Mom, are you ever going to be able to forgive me completely? I looked him straight in the eye. I don't know, Ryan. I honestly don't know. Because forgiveness isn't something you give just because someone asks for it. It's something that's earned. And it's going to take a lot more than tears and apologies. It's going to take actions. It's going to take you proving that you've learned, that you've changed, that the man who kicked me out is gone, and someone better was born. Only then can we talk about forgiveness. He nodded and walked out of the coffee shop, the documents under his arm. I watched him go and felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness, because my son had just discovered his life was a lie. Relief, because he had finally seen the truth. That night, Julian called me. Ryan just contacted me. He wants me to represent him in the divorce. I told him yes. This is going to get very ugly, Caroline. Chloe is not going to go quietly. He was right. 3 days later, Chloe held a press conference. She appeared crying, her makeup streaked, dressed entirely in black. My husband abandoned me, she sobbed into the cameras. He abandoned me because his mother filled his head with lies. Those documents he claims to have are fake, fabricated. It's a conspiracy to destroy me because she never accepted me. But the reporters weren't stupid. Miss Soto, one asked, can you explain why there are public records of your previous marriages if you claim they're fake? Chloe stammered. She tried to justify herself, but with every word, she sank deeper. The press conference ended up being a disaster. Her carefully constructed image fell apart, live on camera, and the world finally saw what I had seen from the beginning. A woman who used tears as weapons and lies as shields. But when the truth caught up to her, she had nowhere left to hide. Justice doesn't always come quickly, but when it comes, it is absolute. 2 years after that Thursday changed everything. I'm sitting on the terrace of my new home. It's not the apartment with the red ribbon. I sold that place a 1.5 years ago. I couldn't take it back without carrying the ghosts of what happened there. This is a new place, smaller, but full of light, with huge windows that overlook the park where I used to sit and think, where I met that woman in the mustard yellow sweater who taught me that letting go is also a form of love. I drink my morning coffee and mentally review the last 2 years. So much has changed, so much has healed, and some things will just never be the same, and that's okay. Because sometimes protecting your past means letting go of the future you imagined to build the one you truly deserve. Ryan and Chloe's divorce was brutal. She fought for every penny, every piece of furniture, every detail. She tried to sue him for damages. She tried to sue us both for conspiracy. But the truth always weighs more than lies. The judges saw the documents. They saw her pattern of behavior. They saw the debts she had hidden. In the end, Chloe walked away with nothing. No apartment, no compensation, nothing except her ruined reputation. I heard from Julian that she tried to contact other wealthy men, but her name was already toxic. Social media doesn't forget. And her face, crying at that press conference, became a meme, a warning, a symbol of what happens when greed disguises itself as love. I didn't feel pleasure in her downfall, just a distant sadness, because she was also a victim of her own choices, of a life built on lies that eventually collapses under its own weight. Ryan tried to rebuild our relationship. He called every week, sent messages, asked for chances to talk, to explain, to apologize. The first few times, I didn't answer. I needed that silence. I needed that space to find myself without being the mother everyone expected me to be. But after 6 months, I agreed to see him. We met at a neutral restaurant. He arrived with flowers, his face showing genuine remorse. "Mom," he began, his voice breaking, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to know that I live with the weight of betraying you every single day. And if I could go back in time, I would choose differently. I would choose to listen to you. I would choose to really see you." I listened without interrupting. When he finished, I said something that surprised him. "Ryan, I forgive you, but forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean everything goes back to the way it was. It means I'm letting go of the anger so it doesn't poison me. But our relationship will never be the same, and you need to accept that," he cried. He nodded. And from that day on, we began a slow process of rebuilding. Not as mother and son in the traditional sense, but as two people who were once family and are now learning to know each other again. Without expectations, without pressure, just with honesty. Ryan started therapy. He told me with humility, "I'm working on understanding why I was so easy to manipulate, why I chose to believe the worst of you. My therapist says I have trouble setting boundaries, with seeing people as they really are, instead of how I want them to be." Those words gave me hope, because it meant he was doing the work. The internal work we all need to do, but that few have the courage to face. I told him about my companies, about how I built them, about the hard decisions, the sleepless nights, the risks I took. And for the first time, he really listened. He asked questions. He showed genuine interest, not in the money, but in understanding who I was beyond the role of mother. One day, he asked if he could work at one of my companies, not as the owner's son, but as a regular employee. "I want to learn from you, Mom. I want to understand how you think, how you built all this. And I want to earn it. Nothing given. Nothing because I'm your son. Only on merit." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I nodded. "We'll do a 3-month trial. If you show commitment, discipline, and humility, we'll continue. If not, you're out. No hard feelings. Deal?" "Deal," he replied, with a shy smile that reminded me of the boy he used to be. He's been working with me for a year. He started in logistics. Hard work, no glamour, no nice office. And he did it without complaining. Bit by bit, he earned the respect of the team. Not because he was my son, but because he proved he was willing to learn from the ground up. This version of Ryan, humble and hardworking, is someone I'm just getting to know, and I like him. I like him much more than the arrogant man who kicked me out. As for me, these past 2 years have transformed me completely. I don't hide anymore. I give conferences on female entrepreneurship. I talk openly about the decisions I made, the mistakes I committed, and the lessons I learned. I created a foundation that helps older women start their own businesses, because I discovered there are thousands of women like me. Invisible women who have talent, ideas, strength, but who society has written off because of their age. Now, I see them, I hear them, and I help them build their own empires. Small or large, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they see themselves the way I finally learned to see myself. As valuable, as capable, as enough. My Forbes story opened doors I never imagined. But it also taught me something fundamental. External validation is nice, but internal validation is essential. Because at the end of the day, when you turn off the lights and you're alone with yourself, the only opinion that truly matters is your own. Have I healed completely? No. There are still nights when I remember the red ribbon and feel a sharp pain in my chest. There are still moments when I see mothers with their adult sons laughing together and feel a pang for what I lost. But those moments are less and less frequent, less and less intense, because I learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means integrating the pain as part of your story, without allowing it to define your future. Sometimes, losing who you love is the only way to find yourself. And that sentence, which once seemed so cruel, I now understand as the most liberating truth there is. I let Ryan go to save myself. And in that process, paradoxically, we created the possibility of an authentic relationship, one not based on obligation or expectation, but on mutual respect and a conscious choice. I finish my coffee and watch the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Today, I'm giving a lecture at the university. I'll be talking about resilience, about reinvention, about how endings are also beginnings if you have the courage to see them that way. And before I leave, I'll do something I've done every morning for 2 years. I'll stand in front of the mirror and say out loud, I am Caroline. I am 65 years old. I built a legacy. I survived betrayal. I learned to let go and to hold on to myself. And I am still here. Stronger, clearer, more myself than ever. Because in the end, that is the only victory that truly matters. Not revenge, not public justice, but the internal peace of knowing you did the best you could with what you had. And that was always enough. Now I ask you, who have stayed with me through this story, have you ever had to let someone you loved go in order to save yourself? Have you discovered your own strength in the midst of pain? Tell me your story, because none of us are alone in this. And sometimes, sharing our scars is what gives someone else the courage to heal theirs.